Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Logan, aka Suburban Yinzer. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about my dad's ancestors from the south side of Pittsburgh. Primarily the Germans. So, many Yins might know this, many Yins might not. But my dad's side of the family has been living in Southside since 1847. Okay, since before the Civil War. Approximately 15 plus years before the Civil War. And so, my dad's side of the family is basically Southside through and through. Now, there's three different bloodlines I'd like to talk about. Ethnic bloodlines, what I mean. There are the Germans, there are the Irish, and there are the Italians. The Germans and the Irish are my grandfather's side of the family. If Yins know, his name was Mooch. And my grandmother's side of the family, the Italians, her name was Rose. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Germans. I'm going to be talking about the Pittsburgh pioneers. The first people of my bloodline, of my family tree, to come to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, there are two names I want you to remember. There is Christian and Rebel. Okay? Many Yins might have heard those names. You might have heard me mention those names many times. But Christian and Rebel, those are the Germans. Okay? The Christian side of the family was the first side of the family to come to Pittsburgh, a.k.a. Southside, a.k.a. Birmingham Borough, in 1847, okay? Now, the first ancestors to come to Southside were my fourth great-grandparents, Heinrich Christian, and his wife, Anna Gertrude Windeknecht. How about the pronunciation? Henry Christian and Anna Gertrude Windeknecht, if you want to pronounce it like an American, or a.k.a. a Yank. Okay, so my fourth great-grandparents came from Hessen, Germany. And they were escaping Hessen, Germany because of the political and religious instability going on, economic, religious, and political instability going on in Western Europe in the 1840s. Basically, in the late 1840s, my fourth great-grandparents were caught up in the turmoil between the people and the monarchy and the economic aspects of that, society. So my fourth great-grandparents, Henry Christian and his wife Anna Gertrude Windeknecht, they got married in 1842. Okay, so by 1847, they felt something brewing in Germany, and they said, we got to get out of here. So they said, let's go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let's go to America. Let's get out of here. Let's start fresh. So they came to Birmingham Borough. What many Yins don't know about your city's history, if you're from Pittsburgh, is many of the places that we consider Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the modern day were not associated with the city of Pittsburgh itself. If you look south of the Monongahela River, which is the Southside Flats today, that was referred to as Birmingham Borough, and it was an independent borough way back in the 1840s when my ancestors first came to Southside. So, when my dad's ancestors, my fourth great-grandfather and fourth great-grandmother, they and their children, my third great-uncle Reinhardt, my third great-grandmother Elizabeth, and my third great-uncle, I think his name was Martin. I think Martin was one of the ones that came from Germany. He was a baby. But they were little kids, okay? Reinhardt, Elizabeth, and Martin were little kids when they came from Hessen, Germany with their parents off the boat to Baltimore, Maryland, and then assimilated in Birmingham Borough, basically Southside today. So they assimilated in Southside from the 1840s and the 1850s. During the 1850s, my third great-grandfather, Heinrich Rebel Jr., came from Hessen, Germany, and he assimilated, or he basically settled and assimilated in Birmingham Borough in the south side of Pittsburgh, modern-day south side. Now, why are these Germans, so take this with a grain of salt, but Germans are stereotyped to be hard-working, industrious people. They are very determined, which is not a bad thing, but it's a stereotype. Germans are very blunt. They're very crude. They're very serious. They're very determined people. Now, what makes Southside or Birmingham Borough, what makes it so attractive to these Germans? Why is Southside such a magnet for these Germans back in the mid-1800s? Well, the industry, glass blowing foundries, steel mills, iron mills, primarily at that time, iron and glass blowing. And so glass blowing, for many Indians that don't know, how do you think glass is made? Okay, you know what I'm saying? These guys' cheeks would be like out to here because they had to blow to create the bubble, to create the glass things. You know what I mean? They would have like a hose and they go like that, and they blow and they would make shapes. They would mold these molten glass things. And the Germans were very famous for doing that, especially in Southside, okay, in the flats, Birmingham borough. Not primarily only Southside, but in my family's case, Southside. Now, there are a couple other people, famous people, that were residing in Southside or Birmingham during the same time that my ancestors were living there. That's called the Hineses. You know the name Heinz? Okay, Henry Heinz, Heinz ketchup. Guess what? His father and mother from Germany settled in the south side of Pittsburgh, aka Birmingham borough, back in the same time, in the same decades that my ancestors were living there. And guess what? They probably knew each other, and they probably worked with each other in the glass-blowing foundries. Love it. But anyway, so my fourth great-grandparents, the Christians, my third great-grandparents, Henry Riebel Jr. and Elizabeth Christian, who would marry Henry Riebel, they were living in Birmingham borough, skipping all the way to 1861. Well, guess what happens in 1861? The United States and the Confederate States are at war with each other. Now, this is where it's going to get really hairy, and this is where it's going to get really serious. The Germans, like I said, are very determined, very basically serious, crude, blunt, but they're very loyal, determined, strong people. Okay, these people want to do the right thing, and they believe in loyalty. They believe in devotion to one's country, and they want to assimilate. They want to become Americans. They want to become loyal Americans. Now, the Germans, primarily my ancestors living in Southside or Birmingham, they want to pledge themselves to their new home, the United States of America. Now, they don't like that these rebels down in Dixie, in the Mason-Dixon, that are basically rebelling against their government. So my fourth great-grandfather, Henry Christian, my third great uncle Reinhard Christian, his son, and my third great uncle Henry Riebel Jr., or Henry Riebel per se. These loyal Germans, these assimilated German immigrants living in Birmingham borough, approximately from 23rd Street or South 23rd Street all the way to South 27th Street, approximately in that area. So if you think about like Sarah Street, 27th and Jane, or, you know, all Jane Street, Sarah Street, Mary Street, basically all of those blocks, all of those intersections, that whole vicinity that my ancestors have lived in for 155, 160 years, no, more than that, 175 years, those blocks, those streets, are where my ancestors lived and worked and thrived and lived their whole lives since 1847, okay? But these people living in those, you know, houses, those Southside row houses, they wanted to pledge themselves to their country. Well, guess what they do? They enlist in the 35th Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry Regiment in September of 1861. Now, I'm not going to go into a complex, in-depth analysis of my German ancestors that fought in the Civil War, but let's just say that the 35th Pennsylvania became the 74th Pennsylvania. It was designated as segregated German regiment, and I've done deeper analysis and deeper in-depth, complex narration of it in Gettysburg, in the monument. But regardless, my fourth great-grandfather, Henry Christian, his son Reinhardt, and his future son-in-law, Henry Riebel, served in the 74th Pennsylvania. And guess what happened? Henry Christian survived, never wounded. His son Reinhardt was killed in action, basically after the Battle of Second Bull Run, died a month later in Alexandria, Virginia hospital from a wound sustained in the leg, festered, got infected. They amputated it, then he died two days later. And then Henry Riebel Jr., my third great-grandfather, was shot in the arm at the Battle of Chancellorsville and then was discharged from the 74th Pennsylvania. So regardless, these Germans, in my opinion, earned their right to live in the United States. So at that time, they would live in the south side of Pittsburgh when Birmingham would then dissolve and become the south side of the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the 1870s. So at that time, they now are trying to assimilate and trying to get a foothold into the economic status of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then this is what leads into the Lippert side of the family. So I talked about the Christians and the Rebels, and now I'm going to talk about the Lipperts. And if yins know the name Lippert, Lippert's Bar, well, guess what? That's my family too. So the Lipperts lived in Southside. My third great-grandfather, Michael Lippert, okay, he married Margaret Kopp, okay? And so Michael Lippert and Margaret Kopp, or Margaret Lippert, they lived in Southside from, I would say, the 1860s to the 1880s. That's when they lived in Southside. And so the Rebels, so Henry Rebel and Elizabeth Rebel had Charlie. Charlie's my second great-grandfather. Charlie was the one that owned the bar on 27th and Jane, which is currently Chipka's 1. So Charlie was born in 1873. Okay, he is post-Civil War. 100% German, basically German Lutheran, okay, because his side of the family, forgot to mention this. The Christians and the Rebels were Lutherans, okay, German Lutherans. Now, Michael Lippert and his wife, Margaret Kopp Lippert, they had a daughter named Philomena, nicknamed Minnie Lippert. Minnie was born in 1874 in Southside. So Charlie was born in 1873 in Southside. Minnie was born in 1874 in Southside. And guess what? Minnie was German Catholic, okay? Now, this is a thing. The rivalry between the Lutherans and the Catholics in Germany was a thing, because everybody thinks, oh, that's just Ireland. No, it was also a thing in Germany. Big rivalry, big division between those two religions in Germany. Well, guess what happens? Lo and behold, destiny puts its foothold in Southside, and the Lipperts and the Rebels come together in marriage, and Charlie and Minnie get married in 1896 against the wishes of their parents, because their parents hate the fact that she's a Catholic and he's a Lutheran, and that's blasphemy and that's ridiculous. And the German parents are freaking out, because that's not what you do in Germany. You birds of a feather stick together. Lutherans stick together, Catholics stick together. Well, guess what? This is America. They're Americans, born in Southside, okay? They don't follow that crap. So guess what? They get married. Well, as many yins might realize, the Rebels and the Christians are involved in the bar business, the saloon business. They own a confectionery store on Jane Street, okay? Now, this confectionery store is being run by the Christian side of the family, the Christians and Rebels. And guess what? The Lipperts own a bar, which it's debatable where the bar specifically was, but some people tell me South 23rd Street, but approximately that area. Southside, okay, the flats. So the Lipperts are in the bar business, and the Christians and Rebels are basically in the bar business, the confectionery bar business, because candy stores back then, back in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, and 1900s, candy stores could serve alcohol. They had a bar, okay? You could serve candy. Kids can come in. The kids could actually buy candy while the adults are drinking booze in the same establishment. Different time. Crazy. So that is how Charlie and Minnie met each other. They met each other because they were affiliated with the bar business. Their families were in the bar or saloon business in Southside in the late 1800s. And lo and behold, as you might imagine, Charlie and Minnie decide to pursue that business because they've grown up in it. They know that bar business. That bar business is second nature to them. It's like destiny. that they would be both born and raised and live in that saloon atmosphere, the bar atmosphere, and then they would want to, and Charlie, of course, being the head of the household, the head of the family, he would want to go into that business and inherit it from his mother, Elizabeth Riebel, who then inherited the properties in the business from her father and her brothers. So then she inherited the bar, but Charlie, at the end of the day, would want to pursue that and get involved and then basically claim his destiny as the owner and operator of his own saloon, which I'll be going into in depth in part 2 of this video series about my German Southside ancestors. But anyway, stay tuned for part 2.